Am I the a-hole for ruining my family because I refuse to stop sleeping with my husband? This might sound absurd at first, but please hear me out. I'm a 43-year-old woman, married to my husband, who's 45. We've been together for over 18 years and have 2 children, our daughter A, who's 16, and our son N, who's 10. We live in India, in a joint family, which includes my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, BIL, and his 10-year-old son. BIL's wife sadly passed away during childbirth, and ever since then, we've all lived together to support each other. At least, that was the intention. Last week, something strange and honestly humiliating happened. Early one morning, as I was making tea in the kitchen, my Emile came up to me with this stern expression. She looked around as if she didn't want to be overheard and then said, "I heard you last night." I blinked, confused, and asked her what she meant. "You and your husband," she hissed. I was getting water and walked past her room. I heard noises. At your age, this kind of behavior is shameful. You're a mother. You should act like one. I was mortified. I felt like a teenager being scolded for something completely normal. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded awkwardly and mumbled something about being more mindful. In that moment, I didn't want to fight. I was too embarrassed and shocked to respond the way I should have. 2 days later, she confronted me again. This time, she said she had heard us once more, and now she wanted me to stop sleeping in the same room as my husband. I laughed, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. She told me that she and my late father-in-law always slept separately and that it was proper for married couples to be distant once they became parents. I was stunned. But she didn't stop there. That same night, around 1 a.m., she barged into our room and demanded that I come sleep in hers. I tried to reason with her, but she started yelling. She even woke up N, who got scared seeing his grandmother shout at his mother in the middle of the night. My husband protested, but to keep the peace, I followed her and slept in her room like some misbehaving child being punished. It was humiliating. The next morning, I was in the kitchen again when my husband joined me. We were both clearly exhausted and irritated. Then my BIL walked in smirking. "Why were you sleeping in Alma's room?" he asked with a strange glint in his eye. Before I could answer, my husband tried to brush it off by saying it had to do with some private matters. BIL, being BIL, kept poking for details. Then Emile entered, and when BIL asked her the same question, she said loud and clear, "Because they were being dirty. That woman can't keep her hands off her husband." I was stunned. That woman was me. And she said it like I was some disgusting creature. I tried to stay calm. I reminded her that my husband and I were married, and that intimacy is normal and healthy. But she wasn't having it. She spat out a word in our language that basically called me a whore. Before I could even defend myself, my husband stepped in, clearly furious. "Enough, Amma," he said. But then my BIL jumped in and said, "A woman like her shouldn't be lusting after a man, especially not after having kids. What kind of example are you setting for your daughter?" That's when I snapped. I told him he was being completely irrational, sexist, and backward. That he had no right to judge what goes on in my marriage. I told him that maybe if he had shown his wife some affection, things might have turned out differently. Then BIL had the audacity to say, "My wife and I never did anything like that. We only did it to have a child." She understood dignity. And that's when my husband snapped. "You're the reason she died," he said, voice shaking with rage. "You made her abort 4 pregnancies before she finally gave you a son. Her body couldn't handle it anymore, and she died because of you." The entire room went silent. BIL looked like he'd been punched. He left without saying a word. Emile, however, started crying dramatically and turned to my husband, yelling that he was a disgraceful man, a failure of a son and father, and that I was the one who ruined this family. She then tried to gild our son, whispering things to him like, "Your parents are breaking this family apart because they can't control themselves." Thankfully, our daughter overheard and pulled her brother away before Emile could confuse him anymore. Later that evening, I sat both of them down and explained the truth. I was scared of what they might think, but my daughter simply said, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom." I almost cried right then. Now we're packing up to leave. A friend of my husband's has an empty house in another part of town, and we'll be moving there this weekend. My husband is looking for a job transfer, and I'm planning to go back to work to help with the finances. This isn't how I thought things would go, but we can't stay in that house anymore. BIL has moved in with his in-laws. They called us and accused us of being vulgar and disrespectful. They say we've humiliated their son and broken the family by refusing to listen to Emile. They're telling us we're the AHs. But my parents and my brother are standing by us. They say enough is enough, that we've tried long enough to be respectful and supportive, and now it's time to put ourselves first. So, am I the a-hole for refusing to be ashamed of having a physical, loving marriage? For not bowing down to outdated and toxic expectations? For calling out my BIL's past when he tried to insult me? For choosing peace for our children over appeasing an unreasonable elder? I honestly don't believe I am. But maybe you'll tell me otherwise.